Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 31. Having some fun, learning about how to take your acting career up to the next level. Shout out this week to Rachel Drum, acting genius, Slick Fours girl, Neil has red hair, Amanda Dameron, and Chad M. Rogers, or Chad Mr. Odgers, or Chad Rogers. Any of those will work. Also, super shout out, you guys, to everyone who shouted me out on social media. Brooklyn, Darwin, Chad Mr. Rogers, Chad Morongers, Chad Rogers, Ali Rodriguez, Big Bad Yates, Trent Walker Actor, Putting on the Ritz, whoop whoop, Anna Isabel Mina, Cold Shell, Lating Host, L-A-Ting Host, Lating Host, A Little Low Max, Spaghetti House, Jules Bruff, and I am Sarah Nurmi. I am Sarah N. Nurmi. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the shout-outs. I really appreciate it. People have got to hear about it more than once before they're like, I should maybe listen to that. Just think of how many times somebody had to be like, you guys, Game of Thrones was so good. And then you're like, meh, but like, do I care? And then you watched it and you were like, you guys, Game of Thrones is so good. That's what I'm comparing my podcast to. My podcast is the Game of Thrones of podcasts. And so if you're not sharing it, people are missing out on so much death, rape, and depravity. That's what you got. So this week we are talking to Alan Barton. You guys, I love this episode. It just occurs to me that I haven't heard a lot of podcasts or interviews where a teacher is talking with a student and you're familiar with that student's work. And I think that's really interesting. And of course, I'm the person we're talking about, so it's super interesting to me. But really, we talk about the importance of training. We nerd out, you guys. If you are an acting nerd, this is the episode for you. And we talk about getting from phase 1 to phase 3 and who's going to have a better perspective on how people do it and who does it and why people don't make it to phase 3 better than somebody who's been helping actors for 3 decades to try and make that transition. So I think it's really great. Enjoy. I hope you're on your way to an audition. You guys, get to an audition this week. Get to more than one. And I want you to book it. Book it for me, you guys. And then when you book that job this week, shout me out. Be like, Audrey, I booked an audition. Audrey, I booked a job just like you said I should. All right. Have fun. Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors. And today we have
Alan Barton.
And we are going to discuss so much, but Alan is an acting teacher at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
That's right.
You are a writer, a director, a classical pianist.
Right.
What else? And dad?
Dad of 3 really is the thing that dominates a lot of that time, right?
Dad of 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you and I had talked since season 1 of the podcast.
Yes, for sure.
And you angrily texted me, when are you going to have me on your damn podcast?
It was not an angry text.
It wasn't a soft text.
It was insistent.
Okay, insistent. All right. Okay, that's the lawyer in him.
What I realize is that all of your podcasts have been practice for this morning.
That's exactly right. I was just so nervous.
You had to work out a process for yourself.
That's it.
In order
for
to
the
be able
master
to
to arrive.
confront the magnitude of this interview.
That's true. That's just true.
Yep.
So let's talk about where we know each other from. You were my teacher.
Yeah. Audrey was a student of the school and a student of mine for about 7 years. What I'm thinking, 2005 to 2012?
Yeah.
Is that about
I
right?
think it was 2005, 2012.
At the Beverly Hills Playhouse. Mm-hmm. And I had the privilege of watching you grow as an actor and then kind of emerge from that to formulate your own career and succeed with that. And it's been quite impressive to watch you do your thing, I must say.
Thanks. And I got the pleasure of watching you grow as a teacher.
Right.
Right. I was really your first official class, right?
Yeah, that was the first class where it was my class.
Right.
And prior to that, I'd been sort of a journeyman sub for Milton Katselas, who was the guy who started the school and my mentor.
Who might talk about on this podcast.
Yeah,
frequently.
sure.
Right.
So that was the first class that I got to take over, and you were there.
Well, here it
and
was.
That became quite an amazing group of people.
Yeah.
That was a crazy class.
Still one of my favorite groups. And
Yeah, there are times, like I've now been at the school 28 years. And so there are chapters you go through, groups of people that you associate with different 5-year chunks of time. It's usually a kind of 5-year chapters. And that was quite an intense one.
Yeah.
That being my first class and having so many talented people in there.
How long have you been teaching acting?
We are at, I think, year 16, 17, somewhere in there.
And how long have you studied acting?
Well, I started at the school in 90 when I came out of university, so that's 27, 28 years. But in a way, I would say I've been studying since I was 12 and 13, and I was the piano player for the school musicals,
Right.
which meant that I was there for every rehearsal. And happily so. I loved that process. But it was a really interesting, unintentional kind of foundational training just to sit and watch different directors deal with different writers and different actors, even at the level of junior high and high school. I mean, I know it's silly. It's not like there's major high art going on, although some of it was really impressive because we had a talented group. But just to sit and watch this process again and again and again and again, putting together the story.
So you wrote a book.
I wrote a book.
When you approached, or when you insistently texted me
I
about
charmingly insisted.
when am I going to have you on my goddamn podcast, I believe is something how it went. I said,
I don't use language like that.
Well, I think you do. It's okay. This podcast is marked explicit.
Oh, it is? So
people tell
we
me
can
all
use
the
language?
time. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
People tell me all the
didn't know.
time. They're like, I really want to listen to your podcast while I'm in the car, but you curse so much and I have my kids there. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Not sorry. I really wanted to have you on, but I have to read the book, I felt, before having you on. And
I thought I would never get on because of that
Do
reason.
you want to tell them why? There's a secret that a lot of people don't know about me, but
Audrey doesn't like to read.
I think that's such a gross understatement. I
was trying to be nice.
No, you don't have to be nice here.
Okay.
No.
Audrey detests reading, which, is a frightening concept because you're a smart, ambitious person becoming a successful actress and you don't like to read. But I knew that about you.
Yes.
I knew that about you. And then I wrote a book, and it's not a short book. And I thought I'll never get on her podcast because she can't do it without reading the book.
Right. No, I can't. Well, not only that, so then I'll tell them the story. So you guys, I got rid of all the books. All the books I had anyway were all plays, books about acting, all that sort of stuff. I got rid of 90% of the ones that I had, and I have a shelf of 10 left, right? Mm-hmm. And I put you on that shelf. Now it's high.
Along with the Bible and Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All that, exactly. With the great
Bible,
great
Atlas
works of all
Shrugged,
time.
and my book.
That's right. And so it's sitting above on this floating shelf above my bedside table. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking, God, I have to read that book. It's been on the list, right? I have to read this book. And then I come in the bedroom to go to bed, and your book is face up on my bedside table.
Yeah, you need to secure your windows.
Right. And so I said to Jesse, I said, well, what is this book doing on the bedside table? And Jesse said, oh, I think it fell off of the shelf.
We orchestrated a minor earthquake here on the west side.
If the book is going to be the sole only book to land from said shelf onto my bedside table, face up.
Right, not like it landed on the floor or slipped under the bureau.
No, right where I would put a book were I to read it before going to bed.
Yep.
So,
then it happened.
So I read it because I couldn't ignore.
Yeah.
The
and
signs.
then Audrey texts me and said, Milton made this book fall
That's
on
right.
my pillow.
And so I'm reading it. And I have to say, I read it really fast.
That's good.
You cover so much that I think you have a blog. A lot of them are
Can I share the title of the book?
Please.
It's called The Oasis of Insanity.
The Oasis of Insanity.
It came out of a moment in a critique where an actor was bitching about their life.
No, actors don't do that.
Yeah, I know. It was the rare instance where an actor was kind of bitching about their life and the uncertainty and why didn't they want to do something more normal and the family pressures and stuff like that. Yes. And I said, look, you think that what you're doing is insane and that over there people are doing something normal.
Yes.
But if you go into the normal life, the so-called normal life, they have the exact same insecurities, fears, neuroses, worries about their life. Did they make the right choices? It's all exactly the same. So why don't you look at this place as an oasis instead of this symbol of the wrong choice you've made? And I said, we're all sitting here in an oasis of insanity.
Yes.
And it was just this extemporaneous thought. But I remember as I said it, I turned to the class. I said, that would actually be
a good book title.
a really good title of a book about this place.
Yeah.
Because it kind of connotes the
experience.
The experience, because it's a place where you want to be, and then it's totally crazy.
Yeah, I have that conversation with many actors, I have to say, ones who are working and have careers that I would just kill for. And as actors are on occasion known to do, bitch about their lives, and they will...
Rarely, but yes, it does happen.
On the rare occasion. And I say, people with quote-unquote normal jobs and normal lives, they're looking at our lives and like, the adventure and the excitement and like all the things that you get to do every day, and you can make tons of money out of nowhere every day. That's a possibility, and you get to live this sort of magical, exciting, thrilling life. But what you don't then get is this guarantee of security, of health insurance, all that sort of stuff. But so you're looking at their side thinking like, oh, that looks nice. And they're looking at your side thinking that looks nice.
I think this all goes under the grass is greener, right?
The grass is greener, right?
Yeah.
And I just try to tell them to have a little perspective. What? Actors having perspective? That it all looks nice when you're not living that life. But I tell them, especially the ones who are already successful, I'm like, if you wanted that, you could have chosen it.
Yep.
Like, and you would have.
Yep.
But you didn't.
Yep.
There's something else that's calling to you.
And, I had lunch not yesterday with one of our friends from that era, but they had gone from acting at that time into a family situation and then into a job, like corporate job. And now, these years later, is leaving the corporate job and going back into being creative and moving someplace to do that because she realized this isn't it.
Yeah.
This isn't it. It's not the life I wanted.
We want to talk about my favorite part in the book. We're talking about the phases of the actor. Unknowingly about you creating these phases, I have been talking on this podcast about 3 phases. I call them phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 because I'm so creative.
Well, so do I.
But no,
I create a little title, but I said phase 1
is
prologue.
Right. And phase 2 is
build out.
And phase 3 is
I'm working here.
Great.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is everyone in phase 1 and phase 2, everyone feels that they should be at phase 3 already, no matter how long they've been here, no matter what the story is. And every day that goes by that you're not at phase 3 as an actor in this town, you are angry. Usually. The general sense is just anger and frustration without the understanding that like maybe it just takes a little time.
Well, you remember what I told you.
I remember distinctly
because
what you told me.
I thought your way in was because you were an old soul and you had that maturity even back then. I told Audrey, you might have to wait 10 years for your look and your maturity to kind of catch up and coalesce, and all of a sudden you'll be right for a ton of parts.
Right.
And you, in fact, hung out for 10 years to see that I was right.
And
at least in that case.
Well,
I don't want to be like, I was an oracle.
No.
I happened to hit it right with you on that.
Well,
remark.
what you did say in a critique that I talk about in this podcast often, which is that when I talk about attitude, is I had said, I was having a hard time, you guys. He can tell you I was having a hard time because I didn't feel that my talent anywhere near matched my career. And that was very frustrating to me, as it is for many of you. And you said, listen, there's a lot of people that I have to have a conversation with about like, maybe this isn't it for you, like in an honest way, like I'm not trying to push you out or anything, just like maybe you should go sell real estate, or maybe you should go be a teacher in Ohio. And you said, but that's not true for you. This is it for you. So this can either be a good time or this can be a bad time, but the choice is yours. And I was like, fuck. Because you were right. I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it was either going to be an enjoyable 10 years or a really shitty 10 years.
Yeah, and that was also, I would say you were still in Prolog.
I was still in Prolog.
What I would call Prolog.
Right.
And just so we define it, that to me is, the time frame is generally from 1 to 5 years, but it doesn't have to be.
No. From arriving, I would say, in LA.
Yeah, it's from arriving in LA until the point at which you realize, I got to be serious about this, and I'm going to have to work at this, and it's not just going to happen to me.
Right.
And that process, by my observation, is a 1 to 5 year process. process where you show up in your 20s and you're just getting acclimated to LA, you join a class, you're fucking around, drinking too much, you're a party and the thing, and it's just kind of aimless and you're wandering and you're doing a ton of different things. And I'm not saying there's no work in that space. You might book some work here and there, but it has no direction and it seems very random. And it ends at a moment that you say, you know what, it's not happening for me the way I want. I'm probably going to have to sacrifice something to get serious.
Yes.
So now I'm not going to do these drugs, or I'm not going to party as much, or I am going to get into a class, or I'm going to take the class I'm in more seriously. And I'm going to get to work on really making sure I have a technique and an administrative system.
Yeah.
And that decision point is really the beginning of what I would then call phase 2, which is building out your career, which can take another 1 to 5 years. And that's, you know.
Yeah, to me, the ending of the prologue is really coming up an understanding that there is a solvable problem that the actor needs to address. And for many of you, maybe the solvable problem is like a lot of people who come on, I say, what's the one thing you wish somebody had taught you when you were just a wee babe? And for a lot of them, the answer is like, I wish somebody would have said drink less. You know, that's a big thing for a lot of people. You know, what was sort of tricky about me and tricky about a lot of you who are sort of overachiever type A good students is that you're not doing any of that stuff. So you're like, well, I'm not smoking pot and I'm not drinking and I'm not blowing a bunch of money. I'm just working my fucking ass off and it's not coming. So what is it? And you have to discover for yourself, maybe what is it? What is it? What is unique to your particular problem that needs
what's
solving?
the thing you've got to solve?
Yeah.
And that can be different for each person, even though you can take 10 talented people who say, like you say, let's remove the drinking and the drugs and irresponsible behavior.
Right.
Obviously irresponsible behavior that you need to knock off if you're going to be a pro.
Right.
Now let's take 10 of those people who are talented. They may have 10 different issues now. You know, now that we've stripped away
those
the
sort
BS.
Of, bullshit problems, right?
You've got 10 other different problems unique to those people about what's going to be the thing that solves this over time. That they can then get work. Because I think you got to put together a network of people who trust you, who bring you in again and again. I'm sure you've been in rooms 8 times before booking a gig. Yeah. Or you've been in there 10 times and still haven't. Yeah. But they're calling you back. Yes. They're bringing you back. So that means you're doing the work. You're doing the work. Yeah. But people need to somehow get to that 50 auditions a year where they get to really swing the bat. Yeah. And then you figure out what the rhythm is. Right. And you place each one, I think, in the appropriate context. Right. And you don't overswing. But actors, if we're using that metaphor, moving to baseball from piano. Yeah, right. The audition is so rare that the pitch comes, and that's the audition. They're swinging at it 5 times. Yes. They take the bat off their shoulder, and they're swinging madly, and the guy hasn't pitched the ball yet. And they wonder why they're not booking it. Right. And it's because it's so important. Right. It's their one at-bat. It's the one pitch. So there's a whole process once you have a technique of how to play this piano that you are. Right. Of how to play it under pressure. Well, and that's really the build-out phase, right? Yeah. Like in the build-out phase, you're going from having is the 1 to 5 years where you're going from like the 4 auditions a year that you're just like so happy to have to the 50 a year. Yeah. Yeah. Early on when I was in sort of I'm going to be a pro actor phase before I moved to writing and directing, which was fairly quick. I mean, within 5 years. Yeah. I remember I had to psych myself in just to walk into a room with other actors. Yeah. Because you kind of felt like, am I one of these people who's walking into a room with a headshot? Walking into a building. I didn't want to be seen on the sidewalk carrying the, you have to get over those issues. I mean, I think some people feel embarrassed by the process. Yeah. So let's then talk about phase 2 is this building out. You're getting your numbers up. You're figuring out your casting. That's really where you're getting your tape together. That's where you're getting representation of note in place. Yes. It's where you're maybe starting to have 1 year here or there where you're making SAG Health and you're able to report to people that you're not wasting your life. You don't throw away the form that they send you. No, that's right. You actually have it. You report it. Then phase 3 is when you have enough credits on your resume, enough momentum in your booking, in your audition technique, your professionalism on set, your professionalism in receiving opportunities, gathering opportunities. Yeah, I would say it's likely that you may even be able to give up your day job and live off of what you're making from acting. That would be like a nice easy marker of a phase 3 existence is you're now living off of it. Yeah. Which means, okay, you've gotten there. Yes. That's great. That's right. But you got to not fuck it up. Yeah. And people do. People do all the time. And they also stop working. They think, I'm here.
Yes.
I got to quit my day job.
Yep.
So they stop, they take the foot off the gas on their admin and watch it all come back down. So it's no party once you're at phase 3. Phase 3 is as much work as all of it.
What I tell people too is that people get to like a phase 3 section and then they feel like they want then phase 3 to be like this thing that happens every week. And part of my intention with this podcast is dispelling that myth. Just dispelling it. It's just not true.
Yeah.
And that most actors, working actors paying their bills, they're either booking one job that pays for their year, and that's the job that they worked this year, or they're booking maybe 4 to 8 jobs a year that is paying for their year.
Yeah.
Once you sort of get in it, you guys will see like the math, the money, the time you're spending on set, that then means you can't audition for stuff or be in other stuff. Like it's sort of, there's a maxing out experience that the only reason that gets pushed out is because you're making so much money on a particular job that's sort of now taken care of 3 years or whatever.
Did you read the Ellen Pompeo interview?
I didn't, no.
It's a very interesting interview. I can't remember who. Hollywood Reporter?
Probably.
Can't remember. You can look it up. It's a very interesting interview about that.
Yeah.
What she's done over her career with Grey's Anatomy and the money she's now demanded and having the cojones.
That one.
The
Yes, I know
cojones
about
to
that
ask
one.
for it.
Yes.
But it's interesting because people forget that she was on the verge of maybe being a film, like a working film actress star before Grey's Anatomy. And it was a big decision for her whether to go for the audition. Because she knew if she took that job and got it, that would largely identify her career
for the next 14 years of her life.
Yeah,
as it has.
But and it's a very honest. She's from not my neighborhood, but she's from the Boston.
Yes,
and she comes from kind of a tough family. Working class, tough, borderline mobbed up family. I think so. She's tough.
Yeah.
So I would recommend the interview just to see what it is from someone who anyone would look at Ellen Pompeo and say, I want that. I want it to be the lead on a series. I'm going to make tens of millions of dollars.
And then you read it.
And then you read it and you see...
She has a life experience.
She has a life experience.
Which is real.
Which is real. Yeah. Including still at this years and years into the series wondering how much she can ask for. And what does she deserve? Yes. And what does she deserve versus the male actors?
Yes.
And the whole issue, it's still there.
Yes, perspective. But wait, Alan, wait. I have to interrupt you. Alan, I know you don't like being interrupted, but I have to do it.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
So this listener question says, I listened to your episode with Ethan, and you said something in your union segment that agents don't have your best interest at heart when suggesting that you not go SAG once you're eligible. I wanted to say, while I do believe that is mostly true, I also have some reservations about that as a blanket statement. I've been with my new agent since the new year and my manager for almost 3. They're both great. Once I found this agent, they told me that they would only submit me for union jobs because anything else is not worth it. I agreed with them. Side note, they also have gotten me out 25 times since January. Woo woo, go girl. And gotten me into rooms that I don't think my resume necessarily warrants at this point. I'm very happy. My manager, on the other hand, told me that she does not oppose me going union, but she wants me to build my credits to compete with those other actors that are booking on that union level. She feels I do myself a disservice without building more substantial credits first. I have to agree. Do you feel the same, or am I letting smoke be blown up my butt? Girl, you are letting smoke be blown up your butt. It doesn't make sense to me because you're saying to me that you have an agent who says union is the only way to go, and that agent is getting you out for 25 auditions since the new year for roles and auditions that you don't feel your resume warrants. So your agent is already proving that you are able to compete on a union level without that non-union work. And I wonder if you would do even better if you already said that you were union, if you were already made it clear that you could compete on a union level. This argument that you have to have non-union experience in order to compete on a union level is quite frankly really just outdated and not true. And I feel very comfortable with that blanket statement. The most that you're going to book if you're non-union is you're going to book maybe some non-union short films, you're going to book some non-union features, you're maybe going to do some non-union theater, and those credits on your resume are not going to be impressive credits because nobody has any idea what they are. The only reason you're going to do a film and anyone has any understanding of what it is is because there's a director on it or a production company on it or an actor in it that people recognize. Otherwise, you're just in a short film called Random Times, and it's just with a random cast members, and not for nothing, but you can just lie about that. Like, if you feel like you want to have like a film that you were in that nobody's going to know about anyway, just make that line up on your resume, because nobody knows anyway. It's not real. So the most you're going to get is maybe some experience on set, but you're never going to see that footage. You're going to lose money doing that. And quite frankly, I would rather you be investing your time, money, and energy in classes, in coaching, in teaching, in self-taping, in a way that you are getting your experience, maybe shooting some things for the web on the weekends with your friends, things like that, instead of putting yourself in danger and doing projects that are non-union. I feel like you negated yourself within your own email. And I don't think that your manager is nefarious. I just don't think that they're correct. I think that's an outdated statement that was made from like 1996, when the only way you could do something was to do it with a camera that nobody had access to. And that's just not true anymore. You have more experience now than the actors your age did 20 years ago, simply because we have cameras on our phones. So there, blanket statement. Join the union, you guys. Join the union. I know it takes courage to stand up to somebody who is saying that they have your best interest at heart and they feel like your lifeline to auditions, and it takes courage to go ahead and defy them and go union. But I'm telling you to have the courage and to defy them because Audrey says so. And you just have to trust me on that. You're courageous people. You are actors who have the courage to stand in front of a group of people, which is the thing that like nobody feels comfortable doing. It's like a scientific fact. Standing up in front of people and talking is opposite what you're supposed to want to do. And then you decided that you were going to have enough courage to then pursue that for a living. And you know how you make a living off of it? You become a union actor. That's the only way to make a living off of this business. You work union. So have the courage. Join the union. All right. Good luck.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
People think of the process of creating your career as something different from the process of creating a scene and a character. And I am such a fan of that it's the same creative process, just applied to a different thing. And just like in acting, you have like this, you just like can't, like the scene doesn't work, and you have this line that like you just can't figure it out. And your job is to figure it out.
Yeah.
You're just going to figure it out. It's not the end of the world. You're going to figure it out. And just like in your acting career, you maybe have something that you're not good at, a part of it that you're not ready for, and you just have to solve it.
You figure it out.
You have to figure it out.
I'm not good at calling up someone or,
Right.
Most people would say, I don't have the right agent. I don't have an agent who has enough juice to get me out. That's probably the number one actor complaint administratively in this town.
Yes.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you got to solve that.
Get it.
And how do you solve that?
Yeah.
Well, you could build up enough material on your reel that when you get this meeting with someone who you admire, you've got stuff that'll blow them away. You're solving a puzzle.
Yeah,
you're solving a puzzle with story.
Yes.
Storytelling is solving a puzzle. Think about the whole lifeline of a story. Blank page, writer, script, revisions, a million revisions, financing, producer, director, maybe more than one director before you finally get the director. Right. And then, so it goes through a multi-year process probably. And at the last second, the last 10% of this is who's the casting director, and get us some actors in here. Yeah. Beyond the leads who they may have cast already. Right. And that's where you come in. Yeah. But for the actor walking into that little step in the process, that's their entire vista.
I know. Well, we talk about perspective. Have some freaking perspective.
That's when they overwork that moment and don't understand their role in the storytelling process. And that is something that only time,
practice,
beating your head against the wall and getting beat up by someone you trust to beat you up. In terms of a teacher, you got to find the person who you go, okay, if they're going to come after me, I like the way they do that.
Right.
It doesn't make me feel like shit. I feel like I'm being dealt with honestly.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm
improving. That's to everyone's taste.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You got to find that. But you're right. It's problem solving. It's solving a puzzle.
Because everyone acts like it's this mysterious black hole abyss that's just like, and I'm like, I always say to people, like, to our close friends, I say, I'm not more special than you. I don't have a magic wand. Like, I didn't like happen upon. I was like, oh, I'm good at this, but I don't have this.
But
How
I love
do
what you
get
say
that?
about like, you practiced self-tapes.
Oh, all the time.
How many?
2 years, 4 days a week.
So you did just one a day or you did multiple a day?
I did usually one commercial copy of various lengths, and I did one theatrical.
So let's call that 8 a week for 2 years.
Yeah.
Practicing. This isn't for actual auditions.
No, this is practicing. But I
So
didn't
how
count
many-
if
how
I
many-
had an
how many
actual
people are
audition.
doing that?
Nobody.
Nobody
But
is
I
doing
tell
that.
people on this podcast every day, I'm like, you have to self-tape yourself, because they're like, because actors are terrible at auditioning, and they're only terrible because it's impossible to recreate that experience unless you have the experience.
Yeah.
So it's a very challenging thing to practice.
But that's you. But that's your willpower and your decision making to go, you know what? I'm going to get good at this.
Yeah. Your job is to be an actor.
Yeah.
And if part of being an actor, working as an actor, is getting good at auditions, and you're not good at auditions, then you are not getting good as an actor. You might be a great actor, but you're not going to work. And so if you know that's the problem, I can't wrap my head around why you don't do whatever you need to do to solve that problem.
But
'Cause
that's
it's
why.
solvable.
But that's why it's 1% who are in phase
That is
3.
why it's 1%. That's right. Because no matter how much I tell people,
Yeah.
you have to do this, none of them are going to do it.
Yeah, it's like ages ago I took the Robert McKee screenwriting workshop.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm going to tell you to do something and none of you will do it. And he goes, watch a movie with the screenplay in your hand and read the screenplay while you watch the movie. And you'll understand how what you're reading translates to a visual, that what you're writing is a description of a movie. It's not,
Yes.
he was trying to get that point across. He goes, so I'm going to tell you to do something and none of you will do it.
Yep. Did you do it?
No.
It's so true.
And,
Right,
but there's
that's
also the
test,
arrogance.
though, right?
But there's an arrogance about, I don't need to do that.
Right. Well,
Audrey
it's-
does that, but I don't need to do that. I'm good at auditions.
Right.
And so how do you beat the fantasy element of, are they good? Are you?
Well, and what I tell people too is I always say I never ask people to do more than I ask of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I also almost kind of don't even ask them to do what I ask of myself, because I know that I'm crazy about it. But like, don't show up to me
Yeah,
and be
no
like, I'm not working, and then not be working as hard as I am
Yeah,
at
and that
working.
was your way into being good at
That's
self-tapes.
right.
And someone else may be good on doing 50 or 20 or
That's
10.
it.
But what you can't argue is
Right.
it's not a process I need to practice.
That's right.
You can't break down the audition into things that I don't need to practice. You know,
No.
that's Audrey's way, but I don't need to practice.
Right.
That's where
Yeah,
you
I
go,
don't care how
okay,
you
don't do it
practice
for 2
auditioning.
years.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to do 200 self-tapes.
Yeah, I tell people you don't even have to do it 4 times a week. Do once a week. And I tell people too, because I give myself outs. Sometimes I would learn 14 pages, and sometimes I was like, I'm going to do a 3-line co-star today.
Yeah.
Because you would get both. And I want to be proficient at both. So if I was like, I'm feeling a little tired and lazy today, 3 lines. If I'm feeling adventuresome and I feel like I need to knock something down, 14 pages.
Yeah.
But I can learn 14 pages now.
No problem.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, and that wasn't just that process. I still go back to
Yeah.
the 200 scenes and having done it since you were in
100%.
junior high school.
All of that.
Absorbing material, the ability to absorb material,
Mm-hmm.
get into your brain, spit it out your mouth, and to do so eloquently and without being like,
And
That's a skill.
have it be you. Have
Yeah.
it be your stamp on it.
yeah.
That's right. So I wanted to just share with people 2 of my favorite Alan Barton critiques, and you can just sit
Okay.
here and
I just sit
enjoy
back?
them. Just sit
I'll
back.
sip my coffee.
Yeah, and sip your coffee.
Let me check my text.
Okay, text your text. Because I want people to have an understanding of the school and what it teaches. It teaches 3 pillars. You want to talk about the 3 pillars of the school?
Sure. We talk about acting, obviously, because you're joining an acting class. So how to act better. What we call attitude, which is just your how do you comport yourself as an actor? You know, a professional attitude, being on time, not being
Not being a jerk, hopefully. Don't
not
be a
just
jerk.
not indulging your neuroses
Yeah.
in a professional setting, that
Right.
kind of thing. So that's the attitude portion, and then administration, which is where you've really excelled. Since you already had acting and attitude.
I mean,
down.
you know.
But administration is essentially what are you doing
To administrate.
professionally to administrate your career and make it happen.
Right. The
And,
business side of acting.
Essentially the business side of it. So those are the 3 pillars of what we cover at the school.
And what I do in this podcast is really mostly discuss the attitude and the administration part.
Yes.
Because that's where I feel most actors are grossly lacking. That there's
And
so
a
much.
podcast is uniquely unsuited to teach acting itself. So
you cannot.
You're
Right.
definitely in safe turf to talk about the other two.
Right. But I feel that there are really great people out there teaching acting, but not a lot of people who are in the business, working in the business, talking about what the business looks like now at this moment
Yeah,
today.
and as a journeyman actor who's making it happen, not from some high position. Where
exactly.
I made my travels through the desert.
In
and now I'm here.
1995, I booked my movie, and I've been famous ever since. That's of no use to most actors.
Yeah, no,
now.
that's where I think you've really seen your moment.
I've seized the day, you guys.
You've seen the moment.
All right, so here's my two favorite critiques.
Okay.
You ready? Okay. So those of you who don't know, Alan is a classical musician and born and raised in a musical family. So my favorite critique, the one where I sort of got what training of an actor is and why. Because like many of you, I just like acting. And I think a lot of actors just sort of blindly are doing acting work without really a specific understanding of what the training purpose is.
Yes.
So this particular student got up and started playing a song on the saxophone. And what's great about this school is all sorts of levels of performance, whether that's music or dance or whatever, can all be critiqued through the Beverly Hills Playhouse. This person got up and did a song on the saxophone, and it was fine. It was solid. And she said, so tell me about how you learned how to play the saxophone. And this person had taught themselves completely how to play the saxophone. And you said, it's interesting, you're doing the song as it's supposed to be done. It's sort of, you're doing the song. There's nothing really about the song that I get you. I get your experience of the song. I get what it means to you. You're sort of lovingly just sort of playing the notes as written in the time in which they're supposed to be played. And you said, I want you now to play the song, but play it in the way that you want to play it, with your sense of expression, with what you want to do. And he played it, and you said, yeah, now see, it's interesting because you've taught yourself and you don't have the training to back it up. You don't quite have the breath capacity to allow your fullness of expression to go through the piece.
Yeah. Technique is the ability, the tool you're going to use to express yourself. And if you don't have technique, you're not going to be able to express yourself.
And I would say I see that in dance a lot.
Yeah, sure. The
Dancers.
performing arts, other than acting,
Really,
all require a very specific technique that's identifiable. It's admirable. You look at it and you say, oh, clearly this person spent 10,000,
Yes.
20,000, 30,000 hours.
Yes.
They dedicated their life to being this good. And in acting, all of a sudden, you can't quite see what that is.
Right.
It's not identifiable as this special thing.
Right.
And so people think it doesn't exist.
Yes. And I thought it was so encapsulated. And I was like, oh, training.
Yeah.
Like I'm training a certain set of facility, a facilness, as Milton used to call it. How facile are you? So that when impulses come to me, I'm then able to receive them and execute them.
You're playing a piano as an actor.
Yeah.
It's just within you. You have to learn how to play it, and it's hard to learn how to play it because there are no keys. It's,
Each instrument is different.
Each instrument is different. So, but the metaphor holds, and I believe it works. You are playing an instrument. The instrument is you. And you have to learn how to play it with a certain reserve,
Yes.
with a certain distance, so you don't get involved psychologically in the problems of your character, which is a notorious, I think, misunderstanding
Actor
of what
thing,
acting can
right?
be or
Yes.
should be. And you're learning to play that instrument, and it takes perhaps maybe not longer to become proficient than with any other instrument, but it certainly you have to have that mindset.
And I would say
And it's more ephemeral and harder to understand because you can't see the instrument.
Right. And you say in the book, and I think this is I thought so eloquently put, was that you said, part of what's hard about acting is that when a person becomes a really incredible actor, you can't see the work at all. There's no sense of
there's no dazzling technique the way you go to see a concert musician.
Right.
You go, oh my God,
Look at
how
what
does
they're
she
doing.
do that?
And there's certain examples, like there's certainly some people who are skilled in a particular area, like maybe they're a particularly emotional actor, so that's got razzle dazzle to it.
Yeah, you look at certain people. A lot of people identify Daniel Day-Lewis as sort of the master of character acting.
Right.
Or Meryl Streep, and she's more prolific than he is. So consistently good with so many different characters, and so people can, I think, see that, but they don't see the everyday
Actor.
quality.
Right.
that people demonstrate.
Who can
in
really
less
walk
flashy
and
parts.
talk and say these lines as though it was them just saying them. And with some sense of purpose and intention that then
and
tells
because
the
the
story.
technique is kind of invisible, the
Right.
misunderstanding is there is no technique.
That you just walk and
come
talk.
You show up in Los Angeles, walk and talk, have a good look, get an agent.
Yeah,
And they think it's going to happen.
that's right.
And that's what's tricky about it.
The next critique that I really love was he was an Asian American actor, and he was so passionate, you guys. And he loved Shakespeare and wanted to do like every Shakespeare, everything there ever was, but felt as an Asian actor that wasn't something that was given to him as an opportunity because he was an Asian American actor. And he talked about a lot of the roles that he wanted to audition for and the roles that he would get auditions for. And most of the roles he would get auditions for were like evil Asian guy in some various form.
Yeah, because he had that intensity.
He had a super intensity.
He was not like... hey,
Yeah, he wasn't
was
the
not
jovial
cliche.
Asian. Right,
Yeah, he was not the cliche of like a nerdy Asian guy who
No.
could play the nerdy guy.
No.
This guy had intensity, and he was
Super intense.
handsome
Yes.
and
Yeah.
wiry
Yes. Yeah. And
and
pointed.
a drinker
Yeah.
and a partier.
Yeah.
He was an
Chaos.
an
Yeah. All
intense
those
guy.
things. And so you told him that he has a way in and to not shy away from mining that way in, and that the way in is probably going to be these like evil Asian characters, but that through doing so, he then shows up on set. He's a good person. People learn to rely on him. He builds connections over time. And over time, he convinces one of them to maybe do a version of a blah, 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 Shakespeare something, wherein he then gets to be the lead. Somebody goes and sees that on a maybe smaller venue. Then he builds that reputation, and boom, he has the building of the career that he wants to have. And you said that everyone has that maybe you're the beautiful person, and so your way in is that. And then you become Charlize Theron, and then you get Monster, and then you create it. But at first you have to be like in Buffy as like the hot chick who's kicking people.
Yeah.
And maybe you're a character actor, and maybe you really feel more like a leading man, but your way in is going to be through the character route, and then you show people that.
Yeah, that there's everyone has their own way in, and what actors want to do is to pick an actor that they admire and reverse engineer that person's way in.
Right.
Pick a
Who
name,
it is,
and
right.
they research that person as someone they admire. They see the steps, and they think those are the only steps.
Yeah.
And there's a million different steps. The thing that's fascinating about acting careers is you never quite know what's the gig that's going to be the thing. What's the relationship? Some student film you did. And then that director becomes significant, becomes someone with a deal, and they liked you. They liked working with you. And guess what? You're in that movie.
Yeah.
You never know. That's why you have to show up and be a pro every
All the time.
day.
Yes.
Every day
Yep.
you must show up and be a pro, because you do not know which connection is the one that's going to be something, because usually there's a breakout moment.
Right.
For you, Godless.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
breakout
right.
moment for you.
Yeah.
I imagine there's 20 different things you can name about the relationships and the things you did
Yes.
that ended up leading to you getting that show.
100%.
I imagine it wasn't, it was nothing. No. I just got this call from my agent, and it was
No.
Godless, and I
No.
booked it. I'm still thinking about Andrew. Remember that?
yeah.
You were in the His Richard III, right?
I was,
That
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Can we describe that concept
Please,
briefly?
go for it.
Because it was one of the best I'd ever seen. Because
thank you.
he used exactly what you're talking about. This, the guy is an Asian actor, wondering what's his way in when Asian parts are written cliched, blah, blah, blah. And this is now 10 years ago when it's getting
Really,
better.
but it was really bad then.
And so he does Richard III, and he comes on stage with white makeup as a white man. And through the seducing, in the seduction of you, he used the tears of his legitimate or acted sadness at having killed your husband, and he used the tears to wipe away the white makeup and become who he really was, and showing you who he really was. Which was it was brilliant on so many levels for him as a person. As a concept of the role, to use an Asian actor trying to be white, which was kind of his thing.
Yes.
And then to attach that to Richard III and one of the most challenging scenes, the most challenging premise is that scene.
Yes.
Then in 10 minutes, he wins her over.
Right.
It was stunning, remember?
Yeah.
He was just
I remember.
rushing.
Yeah, he was rushing.
He was rushing. I took out the piano and I said, listen, play it like this.
Yeah. You were like, calmer. More time.
Yeah.
Well, because
Wow.
you had an
He was-
appetite, right?
Man. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about perspective. You've watched many actors get successful over the years as students and eventually as a teacher. And can you pinpoint or talk about anything? You say in your phase 1 to phase 3, you say basically most people don't make it out of phase 1. Then a smaller
Yeah,
portion
by my
really-
observation, 80% will not emerge from phase 1.
And a lot of you will stay in phase 1 for 20, 30. I mean, you'll
Yeah,
stay
you
there
can
for
you can
years.
be involved and present in LA and
Yeah.
involved in a class and a really good person and still never emerge from Prolog.
No.
Because you never get serious about doing the admin.
That's right.
Which
really
is okay.
Get serious.
I don't make a moral judgment on that.
No,
I'm just,
I don't
I'm just
either.
naming it for what it is.
No,
and
I
that's
tell
fine.
people that too. I'm
and those
like,
people may be
listen,
very happy.
But that's what I say. Happier than many of the working actors.
And good for them, or they
Yeah.
have some other means of
Yeah,
paying
that's
their
right.
rent, and it stays as
I so agree with you.
It stays in a certain place in their life,
Right.
and I'm like, fine.
Fine, great.
I used to think I had to judge it as a
Yeah.
teacher,
Oh, no, you don't.
and I realized, you know what? That's
Fuck it.
fine.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Good
so
for you.
then you say out of that group
Yeah.
from the prologue, then the group that then
So the
makes
20%
it to
that
build
makes
out.
it to build out, by the end, I think really it's only 1% who then make their money from acting, and they can give up their day job, and they've got a career of some sort. And where that career may go, to stardom, to
just
a house
consistency
somewhere,
right.
just consistency for 10 years, and then you choose
Yeah.
to do something else, like
Right.
write or produce.
Right.
Fine, whatever.
Right.
My observation is probably 1%, which I think would be
That's on
is
par
reasonable.
with- well,
if you
also-
look at all the actors who land in LA
Right.
thinking they're going to be paid to act and be professionals for 10 to 20 years,
Yes.
I think you would just reasonably assume probably 1%.
Yeah, and that's actually quite on par with what the rumored SAG statistic is.
Yeah.
The SAG statistic of people in SAG who are able to make a living off of acting
Yeah.
is 3%.
Yeah.
So,
And, actors need to be
1%.
savvy with
and just to get SAG,
building a life that's going to support that which they love to do.
That's right.
Because that which you love to do may or may not be able to pay your mortgage.
at any
and there's
moment
no shame
in time.
that.
No.
You might have something else that pays the mortgage that you also like to do.
Right.
And I think actors need to be more entrepreneurial now more than ever.
Yes.
Because again, the work probably easier to get in general.
But the
to be
amount-
paid well for
yeah.
it, harder
And
to
harder
achieve.
every year. Yeah. So my question is, are there any common threads that you can see in the actors that you've seen, that you've known, and getting from that prologues phase to the working 1% phase?
I have never seen a flake get to phase 3. So I would say the ones who are on time. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want something really
Simple.
easy.
Yeah.
If they're on time, you can make it to phase 3. If you're not, you won't. So you can see that right away
Right.
in whether and how someone deals with a class, which is as we sort of say, a microcosm of the industry.
Yes, right.
You're going to see how they're going to relate to the industry, how they relate to class. You can see it. No one acts differently on set than they do in class. They may think they do, but they don't. For me, the number one indicator is honestly the small daily professional aspects of any career, which is be on time, respond to communication, be a pro, don't disappear, don't be a flake. And you notice none of those things are talent-based.
No, right.
That's all just professionalism-based. And you can turn on the TV and see a lot of people working who maybe don't have the highest talent level. So we know that talent is only a portion of the equation. If you're asking me what's the number one indicator of someone who could make it to phase 3,
Yeah. Of
to
people
me
that
it's
you've
not
seen.
it's not the high level of talent. I certainly see a lot of that, and it's so much fun to see,
Yes.
and you've been in those rooms
Yeah.
where there are 25, 30 people who you just, oh my God, the
They're all
way that guy
incredible.
can kill a scene, the
Yeah.
way she can turn a moment,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It moves you, makes you laugh, cry, whatever. Doesn't mean they're going to make it. So to me, that's the early indicators that if you're a flake, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah. Because it's
And we
too
can all smell that
competitive.
right away.
And not only that, what I tell people about that flake mentality for me is it's like I relate acting in Los Angeles to the Olympics all the time, and it's like
I've been talking
trying-
about it
Yeah.
since last week, since the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
It's a great metaphor. It's right there to be seen.
It's so great, and
every day.
And I've been talking about it with this metaphor since we began, because to me it's like it's so competitive. If it's that competitive and you're going to be a flake, like I don't know. And
All
you
those
know,
people get up at 5 a.m. for years.
for
Years and years and years and years and years
Yes.
and years, and you think you're gonna sleep until 10:30, smoke some pot, and go to a movie, take a class that doesn't challenge you, and unfortunately, you may in fact book some work with that life,
Right.
so it feels as though the career might be, but you're not. I don't think you're gonna get traction. And if
Right.
you want to point to some successful person who is an addict and is a fuck up and is notoriously irresponsible, I would just say, A, that's an extreme minority.
Right.
And B, is that who you want to be?
And C, everything's publicity and lies anyway. I mean, I just have to say that, having gone through a bunch of publicity stuff, like it's all just, you can't, any of what you're reading about any person.
Are you saying there are aspects of the Hollywood promotional machine that are manufactured and fake?
I, in fact, may just be saying that.
This is a shocking
Just
realization.
Just ring in the news, you guys. And so if you're reading about somebody that you really admire, that you're like, oh, that person has all these characteristics that allow me to then fool myself into thinking that I can have that behavior and then be as cool as that person, you don't know that person's whole story. And really, I would just ask you, how's it working for you?
Yeah.
Can you tell when you're working with a student if they're going to stick it out?
Honestly, no.
Has anyone surprised you?
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
sure.
People have surprised me.
But you never know.
No.
I think it's a rookie mistake to think you do. I know that person's going to make it. They're so this, they're so that. You know, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen to their life or what choices they'll make.
Boy.
And then the person who maybe isn't as talented but is a hard worker
Yes.
goes and makes it happen.
Yeah.
Or the one you think isn't talented will suddenly blow you away one day with talent.
I have seen that happen too. I have to tell you, one of the great things about studying in a place and watching people grow over a long period of time is I was definitely part of the group of people that was like, you've got it or you don't got it.
Yeah.
And I am here to say that is not true.
Yep.
That I have sat in classes with people that I'm just like, they just don't got it. I'm like, why do we have to watch this person act still? And then one day,
Something happens.
they're just
It's one of the most fun.
incredible.
It's one of the most fun moments when that happens.
And then incredible again.
Yeah.
And then incredible again. And you're like,
Something clicked.
well, fuck, you're an actor.
Yeah.
So if you're an actor out there and you feel like people looking at you going like, you just don't have it, just know Audrey, who has taken all the acting classes of all the times of all the years that I have seen it happen. And it is incredible to watch.
Yeah. And it was probably thought about you because when you're on the mountain,
I've been
you're on the
incredible my
mountain,
whole
you
life,
don't
you
think
guys.
anyone's, well, no one would judge me because I'm.
No one thought I didn't have it. You
Yeah.
guys, I've always had it. I'm not going to lie to you. So I have a list of things that were some chapters that I just want to know. And I said you could choose what you want them to know or hear.
I guess what I would want them to know or hear, there was one time that I got pissed off on this podcast. It wasn't you. It wasn't something you said. There was a comment like, once you're done packing props in your car and going to your silly class, come and see me and you'll get work.
Right.
And I just issued a stream of expletives in my car as I was listening to that. Because to me, what you've done, like if you were to look at you as an example, and we should because you're the host of the podcast.
Sure.
The reason you were ready to attack administration the way you've attacked it and develop the techniques that are helpful to you that you now offer via a podcast to a lot of people who listen to you is because you were proficient at acting. We talked about it at the beginning of the hour when you said, I realized in relation to something I said to a student, there's a technique here.
And that technique has a purpose.
And it has a purpose.
We're not just an acting class to have fun and waste time.
And it needs to be developed because the technique can be invisible, because there is the allure these days of the quick fix, the 10-week workshop, the weekend thing, the commercial, the cold reading, the sitcom, the improv, which is the subject of training, that chapter called Training Pixelation, where people think there's an association of micro skills that if they take a ton of these workshops for a few weeks at a time, that will make them a professional actor. My experience is that does not make a pro actor. What makes a pro actor is someone who understands how to play the piano that's inside them. And there is no substitute for time and diligence. You did probably 200 scenes.
Oh, at least.
There was a kid in class on the Tuesday night, this night you visited last night, who had one of those moments, incredible breakthrough scene. And I said, he's capable of this because he's been slaving away here. I said, how long have you been here? 7 years. I said, how many scenes? Can't count. I said, 200? He goes, absolutely, maybe more.
Yeah.
And I said, and probably 60% of those you got the crap beat out of you. He goes, probably more. And everyone's laughing.
Yeah.
But there was this remarkable scene. And he's like you, he's built something. And there's no substitute for that kind of work.
Yeah.
And if you want to argue about it, name another career and make the same point. So you want to become a violinist? Now tell me, what does it take? You want to be a professional athlete? Tell me what it takes. Doctor? 10 years. Teacher? A good electrician.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't solve that logic of, well, I'll take a few workshops and I'm good. I'm good to go. It doesn't survive any other career you would want to apply that to. Why does it survive acting? And that's the myth. And that would be the number one thing I would be passionate about saying in relation to anybody, but you're sitting in front of me.
Yes,
you're an old friend and an old student. I say you were ready because you were a drama queen since your high school. Before,
yeah.
You did everything. And then you came out here, you did everything. You ran that class, you did a million scenes, showcases, everything. And there's a certain moment where you went, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing. And then you made something out of that.
Yeah, I would say...
Because you were good.
Yes.
And you've got to be good. Good enough to know that there's a technique and know how to apply it and know how to apply it to different writers in different situations and different tonal styles of different shows. If TV is your thing, like you're a TV like maven.
Right.
Other people might have other things, they really want to do theater. But you got to understand writing. You got to understand what it's doing. You got to understand the structure of a scene. There's no way you're going to do that without beating your head against the wall in a serious class for serious time.
Yeah.
Then you can meet someone who's going to help you with the admin or figure it out for yourself. But that would be the number one thing I'd want to go after, which is kind of a part of all those chapters.
Yeah, I do have this feeling as we continue to discuss my career over the years since, in the
By
school
text.
or leaving by text.
Audrey and I have
we have
deep,
text-versations.
Deep text.
Versations.
Yes, you're the subject of text-versation.
I am.
Audrey is the subject of
I
a
have
chapter
my own
in my
chapter.
book.
It's true. I do always have this sense that you want to sort of like scream at me as I do these podcasts. You're like in my head screaming about maybe a feeling of me being glib about the importance of being a really great actress or actor. And I do want to really emphasize that the only reason why I don't harp on that really hard all the time is because I have probably just a blind side to that, because that was always a given for me.
Yeah.
That for me is always and was always.
Yeah, and along the way, as I've listened, it's not like I know you. I know that you know that.
Right.
But sometimes I wish you would emphasize that. I'm always in the position of critiquing you, Audrey.
Right,
that will never go away.
That's right.
I always hold that position.
That's okay.
No, you're doing an amazing job. She visited my class last night, and I talked about her in front of the group to tell them what she achieved. Yeah. And it's... I don't know. I always feel nervous about saying I'm really proud of what you've achieved because it makes me feel like, am I saying I'm responsible for it?
No, because I feel that about other people. You can be proud of people.
But to look at where you were and what you've become, and now you're a teacher in your own right via this podcast. It's quite something.
Yeah, what I just want to communicate about what you said, and when you say it in your phase 2 build out, you say, in your opinion, until you have really put up 50 scenes with consistent proficiency, and an achievement of somebody that is qualified to measure your success and growth, until you've reached really that level, then you're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, or at least leaving it to chance.
Right, leaving it to chance.
Way more to chance than you need to or should.
And I tell people what is hard about the pursuit of this career is, as you say, there are people who have chance.
Yeah.
And I feel that if we just said to actors, if every actor that was like, I want to be an actor, if you said, great, but just like all the other professions, 10 years. 10 years to build your career, 10 years of solidly working to build your career, I think half of them would drop out immediately.
Yep.
Because the allure is that possibility that in little work, little time, just because
money
of your
for nothing
innate
and the chicks
specialty.
for free.
That's right.
Right?
It's real, yeah.
I want my own TV.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to just reiterate to actors about the power and the importance for me of the great work is that I have seen, as I'm sure Alan has, actors who've gotten some momentum because of a particular thing about them, of their category or whatever, and then they get to a level where truly they can no longer compete.
Yep.
And it's their acting that is in the way in which they can no longer compete.
Yeah, you want to build a technique for the long haul.
And also...
And a lot of people are good enough to do a co-star.
Yes.
You could probably do a co-star with no training, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But are you good enough to hold your shit together when you've got the guest star? Are you good enough to hold a show together if you're the regular?
Right. Are you good enough to be the person, you got to
train for the tough fight.
Well, train
not
for
the
the
easy
Olympics.
Yeah.
Train for the Olympics,
Yeah, I always say,
not
like,
train for the regional
boxers
race.
don't spar with weaklings.
Right.
Why are you doing this scene?
Right.
Well, we just want to have fun. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck having it. Yeah.
Like, would you go into the ring with a boxer and say, I just want to have fun? And you're going to end up on your ass.
That's right.
Like with head injury.
Right.
You train on the best.
Yeah.
For the best.
For the best. And the reason I don't talk about it, just so you guys know, is because to me that's a given.
Yeah.
But that's because my appetite for the work.
And look, your podcast is focused on a phase 2, phase 3 administrative. You know, you're covering a lot of ground and a lot of areas that a class really doesn't cover.
Great.
So I get that.
Great. So let's talk about me, because that's one of my favorite
that's
subjects.
what we're here to do.
As somebody who has really witnessed my journey from, I think you were my teacher, maybe within the first few months that I was in town in Los Angeles. Can you say anything about what you have noticed as a teacher who's watched my continual progress over the years and what I've gone through that will maybe be of some relevance or calming down of neuroses or anything?
I think before, you were too smart for your own good. You had a lot of theories. You came to acting with a lot of theories about acting because you had a lot of training in different ways. And some of those, they're not all invalid. It's not like, what we teach at the Playhouse. It's the only thing.
Right.
What I liked about the place when I first came is that it's not very didactic. It's there to find a way in. What's your way in? But I would say you had more theory than application. Let's just say that. And a lot of people do. I think an actor at the front part of their career who's not being paid to act and is really not acting even in an amateur setting very often, they think about it, right? They contemplate it. They dream about it. They wonder about it. They, because when someone says action, that's pretty rare. Or curtain up, places, whatever. That's all pretty rare. And all that other time, the 90+% of an actor's life that exists outside the frame of action and cut is spent thinking about it. And when you're at the front part of the career, I think those thoughts can be misplaced, overly analytical, too literal about this, that, in terms of looking at a script and what's important. And I saw that with you early on with your acting. But as we did more and more, and you got just a touch older, now that you're 28, those thoughts settled down and you got more into action. I mean, look, it's an old saw to say, it's called acting, it's not called thinking. Wah, wah, wah. But that's a true thing that you can say to actors. It's like, it's acting. It's doing it. And you just got into doing it, and I watched
everything else calm down.
Things just calm down. Like you let the game come to you. There's thinking about being quarterback, and then there's getting the ball in your hands and a bunch of really large men are coming at you at very fast speeds to kill you. And so there's thinking about acting, and then there's doing 200 scenes. And also to see you, I think, become knowledgeable about how people were. Because you were a go-getter, you would organize those showcases.
Yes.
And I think you start to learn how to manage people and what to expect and how to get that person to do this and and that's a huge skill in this business.
It is.
It's a cliche, but it's true. It's a people business. If you don't know how to deal with them in an appropriate way, sometimes tough, sometimes sweet, sometimes this, sometimes you're standing up for yourself, sometimes you're saying yes sir, no sir. You just became more adept at all those skills. That's what I watched.
Yeah, you said yesterday in the class to an actor, and I thought this was so right on the money. You said something like your preparation wasn't enough to withstand the call. Do you remember exactly what it was?
Yeah, it was one of those scenes where it just fell apart. They didn't really know their lines. And it is a difficult scene, a Labute scene, where he can be repetitive. But that's no excuse. Learn your fucking lines.
Right.
And this was a repeat, so I was really in no mood for it. So this actor said, well, they had gotten some news before 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something that put their head in the wrong space. And I just said, you have to train and design your performance to withstand the world.
Yes.
And what the world is going to throw at you. Because you're going to go to set, and I guarantee you'll get into a fender bender on the way, which is why you leave early. You're going to get to set, and someone will call you or text you with something really shitty. And then you're going to have to shoot. And there's just no excuse. This is a professional business based on competence under duress.
Yes.
So you have to design your performance to survive duress.
And that's what
And if you get a phone call, hey, why are you taking a phone call?
Right.
If you're someone who's a little bit more susceptible to a phone call, don't take them. Turn the phone off. If you feel like you need to have it on and deal with the world up until the moment you're working, then you better be tough enough to withstand what the world's going to dish out,
Absolutely.
and then act well.
Yes. I mean, what I really love about that is how it relates to auditioning, and that you have to have a technique already in place so much, an understanding story. I mean, I've talked about pilot season to you guys so many times, but, you know, it's like I got a 13-page multicam series regular lead at 8 o'clock, and the audition was at 11 o'clock the next morning.
8 o'clock at night?
8 o'clock at night. And the audition is 11 o'clock the next morning.
Yep.
And with those 13 pages, I'm not only reading the script, researching whoever the creator is, the director's already out, so what have they done? What's the tone that they're doing? I have to then make choices, have people come over, work it with lines, do everything I can do. And then what am I going to wear? And for women, it's like the hair and the makeup and all the shit. And then you got to get there. And then you see all the girls and who's there and like, oh, they're going for that type. And then, you know, it's like
You immediately cast yourself out of the project?
Well, no, it's not even that. It's more like I luckily I don't do that anymore because I know that like it's all just options.
Yeah.
You know, and like my option's my option and
But
your option's yours.
you've learned that through
But
a
I've
bazillion
learned that,
auditions.
100%.
Most people walk into the room and say, oh, that person's going to get it.
Yeah, and I could see, and also, even if I do that, I'm not upset about that.
Yeah.
I know, like, well, only one of us is going to get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to try and get it if it's yours. I'm here to just do what I do, and if it's mine, it's mine. If it's not, it's not. And then on top of which, it's multicam, which is leading a play. You're learning a play.
Yep.
And there's an expectation about a word perfectness because you're trying to set up their jokes in a way that is a specific thing. And then if you're the lead, you also need to show them you can be a lead.
Yes.
That they can write for you for 7 years.
Yeah.
And put a show around you for 7 years. And
so you had 15 hours and you want to spend maybe 7 or 8 sleeping.
That's it. And that's what you got. And
that's where technique serves. You know,
and that's where
the world is going to serve up that situation.
Exactly.
And
if you're lucky and you get to that level.
Yeah, and you want that problem.
And you want that problem.
But you better be ready for that problem. Because if you haven't been doing 50 scenes of dense material, 13 pages might throw you and you're going to walk in there and be flummoxed. And
if you're not used to that setup, if you're not used to that pressure, if you're not used to learning that amount of material, if 2 pages sends you on a fucking panic attack, you're not ready for the series, and your job, if what you want is a series, is to get ready for that series.
Yeah.
Training.
That's right.
Any questions that you have for me?
What have you learned most from this chapter as a teacher of sorts? I consider your podcast to be your version of a class.
I will say a couple things, that actors are famished for others who know about the business to share with them the business. And that there is this weird, and they're talking about it a lot now in show business. It's not just me, you know, Kim Masters on the Business podcast talks about it a lot that's going on in Hollywood, of this discussion of a transparency of, you know, people are starting to share their salaries, how long they've worked at places. So much of our business is veiled in publicity. And so the experience is so sad for so many actors because they think they should be living the publicity life as opposed to what the real actor life is. I'm learning that. I'm also learning it's really exhausting helping actors.
What do you think? All my hair is gray.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And I mean, I really commend you because I get too emotionally involved in it and it becomes very upsetting.
It's a rookie.
You'll get out
of that phase. Oh, you won't. You'll never lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of your questions that you submitted, I don't know if we're getting to it, is like, what's the toughest thing about being an acting teacher?
Yeah, that's it.
And it's when they leave.
Yeah.
You know, when someone that you give a shit about takes off, and they'll take off. It's sometimes in ways you're just like, really?
Yeah.
You're just not going to return my call and disappear after years of work?
Yeah.
Or it'll be a text or what have you. But it breaks your heart because you've invested.
Yeah.
And you don't have any rights on their life or claim to their loyalty or that they have to take your class longer than they want to. But when there's a connection and you feel that you've invested, well, it's tough. It's a hit.
Yeah.
It's a hit. It happens several times a year and it's no fun any of those times.
Well, it's part of why I continue to always write you letters or text you.
Yeah, and it's really appreciated
open.
because I think, you know, now that you're kind of in a teaching position, you're understanding the amount of mental energy that is spent thinking about, other people and their problems and how to solve it, and desperately wanting
For them.
to get, there are people who on my list of people I think about where like, please someone give them a job.
I feel the same way.
Please.
Yeah.
And it's not something I can control.
But to me,
But
it's more the
I want it so badly
for
for them.
Yeah.
And in a way that's probably unhealthy. But it's, I think all good teachers, that you have to give a shit. You have to really give a shit. And then you have to learn how to handle that.
Yeah, to me,
And to know you can't do everything.
Well, and part of to me where I feel like you almost even have an advantage in that, and because you are in the acting world but are not an actor, and so I feel like where I get into a real attitude problem about it is I just get so angry because I feel like so clearly like I'm not magical. I haven't done anything magical. And for many of them, I'm like, I am not more talented than you. I'm not. I know your work. I know your capabilities. We are of equal talent parness. So it gets very upsetting to me because I feel like I just want to shake them and say like, dude, just do it. I don't understand why you don't just do it.
Yeah.
But
it's part of, I've learned to not get as frustrated by it.
Yeah.
And at some point you go, it's like we talked about earlier, there are some people who stay in phase one.
Yeah.
And that's where they, in some way, they want to stay there.
Yeah.
And you end up being like, you know what?
That's hard for me.
That's okay. It's hard for me as a teacher. I feel like my job, if I were really good at it, I would say the thing. If Milton were
That
here,
would click,
he would
yeah.
say the
I
thing
understand.
that would
I
make
get
it
it.
click, that would lead that person to do their
no, I
200
know.
self-tapes and
Yeah.
suddenly put it all together.
Yeah.
And eventually you go, you know what? I do what I do Tuesday and Wednesday nights for 3 to 4 hours. You want it? Come and get it. And outside that frame, I'll do a lot. I deal with communication all day with students by text, email. You can call me at night. I'll revise your scene. Send me that thing. I'll try to do a lot.
You're involved. You are.
And, I think you have to be.
Yeah.
If your tuition's got to give you you got all that I can give you
Yes.
at any given moment of the day. In the afternoons, it's going to be tough because I'm Mr. Mom and dealing with the kids. But at other times, you got me. But you learn that there's only so much you can do. And you learn not to get emotionally upset by what they won't do.
Yeah.
But I certainly get it. I was there. I watched Milton do it.
Yeah.
I think if you give a shit, you can't help but get frustrated.
Get upset. Yeah.
You can lead that
Yeah,
horse
I
to
have
water,
some-
and if they don't drink it, you
I
go,
know.
hey, nice horsey.
It's just
You're a
hard.
really
I do
nice
feel
horse.
like
I
with
like you.
some actors, I feel like I can't quit you. I just can't. I can't quit you.
Yeah.
And I say to people too about just what do you want? Like, do you want to just be in some stuff sometimes? Then that's your level. Great.
Yeah.
But do you aspire to be the best?
Yeah.
Then there's a lot that goes into being the best. When I've been telling people recently about now being at the level I'm at where I'm working with other people who are always working.
Yeah.
It's even more fun than I ever thought it was going to be. And I thought it was going to be a lot of fun, but it's the most,
You mean being on set with them?
working with them all the time.
Yeah, figuring out the story, figuring out the
Even
scene.
working with the casting directors who are of that level.
Yeah.
You go and work with them and you're like working with them and
Yeah.
you're like, fuck, this is the most fun
Yeah, and you've earned that.
Yeah.
And how long you been in town?
forever.
10 years.
Yeah. Why teaching acting?
Really, why not, Audrey?
I knew everyone with that question.
Doesn't
It's like
everyone-
the most obnoxious question.
Doesn't everyone want to? It was one of those moments, and you were not in the room for my first class, but other friends of yours
I
were.
do know who they are, yes.
And I walked in there and I sat down and I said to them, look, you're either here for a mistake, in which case it's only going to be about 4 hours long, or you're going to be here for the start of something that might be interesting. It obviously ended up being the latter, where just each scene I was really excited to solve the problem and I felt I had an angle on it. And I had worked with Milton for 12 years by that time. It's not like I just walked into the school. I had done a ton of stuff and I had directed and I had written and I had acted and I had run the school and I had ran into the classes. And it was one of those moments where you realize all that skill was going to be funneled into this thing. I just didn't know it yet until he knew it and called me and said, go do it. And in that first class, it was suddenly like, ding. And there it really hasn't stopped then. There's not a night that I'm slated to teach that I'm not excited about it all day. I don't think tonight I'm going to go do that. It's going to be awesome.
That's great.
And there's, and still even a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
For years, I was like, I'm going to be found out for a fraud. I'm going to walk in there tonight. I'm going to have nothing to say to these people. And that has dissipated over time, but I still just love it.
What is your favorite part about teaching?
Well, the breakthrough. I mean, a great scene is always just one of the most fun things. Because a great scene always has about it the uniqueness of the people in it. So you're just like, only you people could have done this scene this way. When you see people working hard and succeeding in the class. But certainly it's balanced when someone calls me and says, hey, I booked it. I got the gig. I got it. I booked it. You know, as a teacher, like I said earlier, there are nights I think, please, someone hire. I have a list. I become religious. God, I have a list of 15 people.
Yes.
They are amazing people.
Yes.
Please give them something to hang on to. So when one of them calls and says, I booked something, I over the moon. So that's the best part.
Yeah. And the hardest part is when they leave.
Yeah. And again, it's selfish.
Yeah. No,
you know, I enjoy
I get it. Yeah.
working with people. It was hard. I remember the meeting you had with me when you said, I'm going to do other,
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know you were. And I understood that. And that's part of why, like I said, I continued to.
And I appreciate that you stay in touch and you're respectful. And when I do something, you come see it. Yeah. And, you know, there's that thing. Because it's amazing when people leave, how completely they leave. Because sometimes I understand it. Look, no one's going to study it forever.
Right.
So if someone leaves and they have a conversation, I go, okay, I understand. Hey, stay in touch.
Yep.
They will not. They will never go there.
Well, the thing
I don't see them for years. I'll see them at Ralph's years later. At a red light or something. So when they leave, it's so completely, I mean, the door is shut. And I'm like, come back sometime. You know, sit in, feel free. We're friends. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And so when they go, it's just an ouch. I like seeing certain people every week. It's fun. I see their work. It's a great collaboration. And then suddenly that's gone. And you're like, fuck. I'm going to miss that person. Yeah. There's some people I just never get used to not expecting to see them.
So if you're listening, I say it doesn't have to be all the time, every time. Just like a note of acknowledgement every couple of years is nice. Just because they have been a part of your creative growth process. And if you then get somewhere because of that, maybe let them know. Because you would want, and that goes the same for agents, casting directors, anyone, without a thing of like,
it's my main number one piece of administrative advice is keep track of everyone that you have dealt with in this business. Yeah. Keep track, like on a spreadsheet, somehow, wherever you like.
I can show you my notebook right here.
And keep in touch 2 to 3 times a year with industry professionals. Maybe teachers don't need that if you're no longer with them, but it's the number one thing because that network, within that network is the thing, is something that's going to get you a job.
Yes.
And maybe you conceive that the teacher is no longer part of that equation, but it's part of a holistic look at the process and how people get where they're going.
I'm just all about treating people good, you guys. And if you were a teacher of somebody for years and then they went off to do some things, you might want to say thanks or, hey, doing some things. Just maybe give that a chance, right? What do you wish someone had told you or managed to get you to understand when you were just embarking on this journey as an acting teacher?
You cannot solve everything, even if you think you're smart enough to. Even if you think you have the answers for this person, you go, it's so clear what you need.
Yeah.
I can see it.
I feel that all the time.
The realization that you can't do everything, and that's okay. You do what you do. Tuesday and Wednesday nights, I'm at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. 7:30 to around 11. That's what I do. You want what I've got during that time, I'm going to give you a really good class. And whatever happens after that, I hope it happens for you, but I cannot be responsible for everything that happens outside that frame. That's right. And you start to learn to be okay with it. Whereas earlier on, I was just like, I know that person's going home and they're unhappy and they need to be called, they need to be checked in with, they need to be made sure that they're not going to go drink or party or fuck or do or thing or this and that. And I've got to manage that relationship and I got to make sure that those two people don't get together and I got to handle that breakup. And
it's like we all need an Al-Anon meeting, you guys.
Yeah, you know, to a certain degree. And I look back on that time where I felt that and I go, rookie.
Yeah, right.
rookie level involvement.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Play the game you know you can win.
Yeah.
I know I can win Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Yeah. You know, I can win that 3 to 4 hours for sure. I'll try on other things, but you get to be okay with not getting everything you want out of a student or that students. Some students won't do what it is you need them to do, and that's okay. It's their life. They get to choose that.
It's hard for me, you guys. It's hard. Social media.
Find me at the Playhouse. The the book, The Oasis of Insanity, is at Amazon for download or paperback. And the Beverly Hills Playhouse is the Beverly Hills Playhouse. You can find our website. We got a building. We got classes.
I just want to just let people know of whatever level you're at, that the Beverly Hills Playhouse teaches in incremental levels. You have an orientation level, you have an intermediate and an advanced and a master class. So whatever is your vibe, I know some people have come up to me who are on series and are like, where should I go to train? Even because it's going to be embarrassing if you have a level of success and you don't feel like you have the level of training that you feel like backs up that success. And the Playhouse
and for that kind of person, there's a Saturday morning class.
Right. And that's long time been a tradition of the school and acknowledging that dichotomy in Hollywood because it's a real thing.
Sure.
Yeah, mildly interesting.
Mildly interesting. The one that everyone stresses about.
Yeah, it's the
Is
one.
Is it mild enough? Is it too strong interest? I'm expressing strong.
I love that people take it so seriously.
Yeah, you really think about it. You've created
a
hook at the end here. That's very interesting. Mildly interesting. Downtown L.A.
Yes.
Disney Hall.
Oh, yes.
Across from Disney Concert Hall is that erector set parking lot, right?
Okay, yes.
It looks like it's hanging on, made by sticks. Just why is it standing? But it's been there for 30 years or more.
Yes.
It's just ugly piece of shit thing sitting there in the middle of downtown LA. They're finally developing it. Their construction begins this fall.
What
on a huge complex. It's going to be 30, 40 stories.
Wow.
Residential, retail. Frank Gehry, who's the architect who did Disney Hall, is doing this. It's been talked about for years and years and years and years, and the funding and the this and the economy and blah, blah, blah. It's so hard to get this stuff together, but it's together.
Wow.
They're going to take that fucker down and this fall, and something else is going to go up, and I think that's mildly interesting.
I think
if you're a downtown LA person who has seen this thing, it's where you park for jury duty a lot of the time, it's finally going away.
Wow, and how exciting that it's going away with something so exciting to replace it.
Yeah, it's not just an office building. It's residential retail.
That's awesome.
So it'll be, I think, it's going to be, I hang out at Disney Hall a lot. I go to the Phil a lot. So for me, I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, fix it.
In a mere 5 years, there'll be something we can go across the street.
Maybe 10. I mean, who knows? We'll see. My mildly interesting is a virtual reality experience that is available at Downtown Disney right now. You guys, for anyone who has watched Star Trek ever, a mere single Star Trek episode, remember the holodeck. I want you to know they've created the holodeck. It's so cool. It's $20 a person. You go in groups of 4.
Where is this? What's Downtown Disney?
So there's Disneyland.
Yeah.
And then there's like the shopping complex that is attached to Disneyland, and that's called Downtown Disney.
I see.
So there's like a movie theater, and then there's like a bunch of terrible restaurants, and there's, it's like all that stuff.
So in there.
So in there, it is a Star Wars experience. And Jesse, being in virtual reality, we were invited by our friends Sean and Morgan to go for Sean's birthday. And we went, you don't have to go to Disneyland. You can just go go see a movie, watch this, go do this experience. It's really cool, you guys. And if you're an entertainer and you're thinking about the future of acting, the future of show business, which I so encourage you to do. As you guys know, I always think about like my heroes in acting, and like when they were my age, the internet didn't exist yet, you guys. Like there was no internet. And that blows my mind. And so now I think like, okay, there's virtual reality. You have like the holodeck has come to life. There are actors involved. Like, what is it going to be? It's so exciting to me. So I know a lot of you are like so grumpy about virtual reality, which is like super weird, BTW. But try it. It's going to blow your mind.
It's not going to take over. It's just going to be an additional.
Yeah, it's fine. It's going to be great. It's going to be great, you guys. So do that. It's really cool. If you have Disney passes and you're not sure, go. I recommend, even if you don't have Disney passes, go do it. Then go have dinner there, go see a movie, and come back. It's super cool. All right, you guys. Alan, thank you so much for coming.
It was a real pleasure.
Was it a real pleasure?
It was a real pleasure.
Okay.
And I see that rock on your ring, on your finger. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Entering the world of matrimony.
Yeah.
Getting that contract
Get yourself
right
some
up, you
kids
guys.
and I'll not even take you seriously.
Shit. No, I would never. I'll just adopt all.
And not just
everyone
one.
else's. No,
'cause
God.
you got to get up to 3.
Oh, shit.
3 means respect.
That's terrible. All right, you guys. So if you are interested in investigating any of this, Beverly Hills Playhouse, you can Google it. I studied there for many years, and I highly recommend it. It is, in fact, on the Audrey Helps Actors recommendations slate on my website. So there you go. All right, guys. Remember, don't forget your towel. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we talk to theater and New York actor Anisha Mehta. I guess Anisha's last name is really Nagajiragajaran, right? But she is the wife and one of my dearest friends, Aalok Mehta. So I call her Anisha Mehta because it's easier to say than Nagajiragajaran. So offensive. So offensive right now. Love you, Anisha. Come be on my show. So I know that the LA to New York thing is like a real thing. People are always like, do I do New York or do I do Los Angeles or what do I do? And so I wanted to have some people on who can discuss the benefits of each side. So we're going to do like a bonus episode midweek this week with my dear friend Peter O'Connor, who lived and worked here in Los Angeles and now is living and working in New York City. And he has a really great perspective on the two and who should move when to what, where, and when and how and why they should do that. It's something I record in a really janky way in New York while I was there, so audio's a little sad, so we're making it a bonus episode. And I think it's really great, though. I listened to the episode. I'm super inspired by it, if I do say so myself. And then we're going to have like a more official episode about the subject with Anisha. Anisha has been a network series regular. She has been a lead on Broadway. She is a musical theater actress, a comedic actress, a musician. She is so incredible. And Jesse is nodding his head right now because everyone just thinks Anisha's top notch. And so we're going to discuss, she is going between New York and Los Angeles, I'd say for the last like 15 years. She's bounced between the two depending on whether or not she's got a Broadway show happening in New York or whether she's got some television and film stuff happening here in LA. So she is particularly well qualified and she is just the loveliest. So I think it's going to be really great. So those of you in New York who are considering Los Angeles, those of you in LA who are considering New York, and those of you who have not yet moved to either and thinking about which one is best for you, this is going to be an exciting next week for you guys. Special thanks to Alan Barton for coming in, taking some time away from his brood of children to discuss so generously the process of the actor and the passion of the teacher to help that actor along their journey. I can tell that you are writing your letters to your previous teachers now as we speak. I know you are so inspired. This show is produced and edited by Jesse Lumen. Oh, he's so handsome. Special thanks to Thomas Snodgrass for the mic assistance here and there. He's so generous with his mic. It's good to have your sound guy across the street, you guys. And thanks to Aalok Mehta for some help with the theme song. Music this week and every week by Ari De Niro. And most importantly, don't forget your towel.